Hi friends, today we are going to discuss William Wordsworth's poem Lions Composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. We will try to understand the various aspects of the poem as well as we also try to understand the romantic movement of the time and how Wordsworth conceived nature. So the full title of the poem is Lions Composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of the Wey River during a tour July 13, 1798. This is the last poem of the series The Lyrical Ballads. And here, the most important fact is Wordsworth's attitude towards past and his feelings for present. He said that no poem of mine, Wordsworth said, was composed under the circumstances more pleasant for me to remember than this. I began it upon leaving Tintern after crossing the Wye, and concluded it just as I was entering Bristol in the evening, after a ramble of 4 or 5 days with my sister Dorothy. Tintern Abbey stands with Immortality Wood as the two greatest landmarks in Wordsworth's poetry. This is the first poem in which, for the first time, Wordsworth had felt himself in full and articulate control of his genius. So, in this poem, Wordsworth became aware of his poetic qualities, and he here achieved a certain distinction. The poet revisits the Wye after a lapse of 5 years. Once again, he hears the murmur of the Wye and sees the steep and lofty cliffs, the dark sycamore, the plots of cottage ground, the orchard with its unripe fruits, the hedgerows, the pastoral farms, and columns of smoke rising from among the trees with a distant glimpse of the gypsy tents in the woods or some of hermit's cave. A long absence doesn't seem to have blotted out of his memory of those beautiful forms. So they have a profound spiritual effect on him. The experience of past or feelings of past is still there in Wordsworth's mind, and it is not something which can be easily forgotten. So the poet stands on the banks of Wye, and the old picture revives in his mind. He contrasts his past feelings with the present ones. In his childhood days, he enjoyed nature only through senses. At that moment, the sounding cataract haunted him like a passion. After he attained maturity, he developed a new view of nature because he is now aware of human suffering and problems. Here, Wordsworth said that during his childhood, he have different kind of view of nature, but now he is matured, and he now realizes human sufferings and problems, and thus his view of nature is now different, and he is now contrasting these two feelings, the feelings of past and present. He has discovered in nature the existence of a living spirit. Nature has thus become the nurse, the guide, the guardian of his heart and soul of all his moral beings. The lesson that Wordsworth learned is that nature never betrays the heart that loves her. Nature leads us from joy to joy and fills our minds with quietness and beauty. Nature influenced him and brought him peace and tranquility of mind even when he was in the dim and bustle of the city. So here Wordsworth developed his theory of pantheism. He find a living being in nature. He considered nature as having a life of its own, and he find that there is something divine that was manifested in nature. So in the poem Tintern Abbey, Wordsworth clearly reveals his mysticism and pantheism. Pantheism is love for nature. Wordsworth is the prophet of nature. Wordsworth is a mystic in the sense that he is a seer and a practical psychologist with an amazing subtle mind and an unusual capacity for feeling. Wordsworth conceived as poet that nature is alive. He considered nature as a living soul. So here Wordsworth is a philosopher, is a kind of prophet who have a vision, to see the future, who have the capacity to look back at the past and contrast the past and the present feelings, and then established his viewpoint. Wordsworth concept as poet that nature is alive. He considered nature as a living soul, which entering into flower, stream, or mountain gave them each a soul of their own. Here he gives an account of the different stages of development of his love for nature. How from a healthy boy's delight in outdoor life, from a purely physical attraction for the objects of nature, he passed on through a contact with the still sad music of humanity to a rationalization of an all-pervading spirit in nature. So here we find that Wordsworth's view of nature has changed, And now, as he has attained maturity, he can listen to the sad music of humanity. Tintern Abbey is addressed to Arthur's sister Dorothy. She was his link with humanity. It is a piece of highly accomplished verse, conceived and composed in a full flood of creative activity. Tintern Abbey poem is often considered a Wordsworth's autobiography. It is his own testimony to the change in his feelings and in his outlook since he first came that way 5 years before. So, in the poem Tintern Abbey, we find Wordsworth's deep love for nature and the kind of tribute that he has paid to his own sister Dorothy is also immense. So, this is for today. Thank you. Thank you so much.